Welcome back again, and in this lecture, we will discuss culture and the effects in the classroom for an ELL student. My name is Aggie. When you take the Praxis exam, some culture questions will be presented along with theories and methodologies. There are two types of immigrants to the United States, voluntarily or involuntary. An involuntary immigrant would be immigrants who have been displaced by war, famine, disease, or to escape poverty. A voluntary immigrant would a person who came to the USA to work or live. By understanding the values of the student, you'll be able to promote the student's self-esteem, self-worth, and hopefully alleviate any tension of misunderstanding when it comes to culture in the classroom. Remember that culture maintains a major role in a student's educational and family life. If you respect the student's culture and show that you really are interested in learning about the student's culture, the students will react positively, will have a better time in your classroom and achieve success. The definition of culture is the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. It includes music, art, dance, food, language, religion, and how the individuals act, dress, and respect the people around them. It is not limited to the national origin or ethnicity. To repeat, voluntary immigrants come to the United States to live or work, while involuntary immigrants are people who are escaping war or poverty. This also could include the Native Americans, people of Spanish descent, Native Hawaiians, and African Americans. Many teachers in public schools cause dilemmas for students because they do not understand the student's culture or care to learn about it. Many of these problems occur during teaching and assessment. Some teachers refuse to allow students to speak their native language in the classroom. As a teacher, you should encourage the students to speak the native language because it shows respect to the student and it shows that their language is welcome. There are also some culture aspects that using their native language must be taken into consideration. For example, in some cultures, children are not allowed to speak to the opposite sex, while in some cultures, the students prefer to work as a group and not as an individually. On the other hand, some cultures are the opposite. An item you must think about is that in some cultures, as a teacher you may ask a question to a student and before the student will answer, they will ask their classmates how to answer this question in the native tongue. They are confirming with the class on how to answer the question. When you see a student look around and speak in another language, know they may be confirming the answer and are looking for approval from the other students. Let them do it. Some teachers get really upset and yell at the students. When you do this, the students lose respect for you and may withdraw. Think about what the student is trying to accomplish before answering. Are they trying to find an answer? Are they trying to get somebody else the answer for them? Sometimes they're asking, how do I answer? What should I say? Sometimes writing assignments are difficult because some students have never been able to write a paragraph in English, but they can write an essay in their native language. The assessments usually are written for native-speaking English speakers. When you have an ELL student taking an assessment, you should give them extra time to be able to finish the assignment or lesson, maybe half an hour to an hour, because they really have to look at what they're writing, they have to look at the questions, think about the answers, and try to translate it into what is being asked. Another problem is some teachers don't grade similarly or fairly. The teachers give an assessment and an ELL student gets a 40% because they really didn't understand the questions or assignment. By doing this, the student is going to fail. Some teachers don't give extra credit or extra consideration for an ELL student to help them pass the course. A teacher must understand the culture and form a lesson around the student. Some immigrant student will look up to the teacher who does this. In China and Japan, the teacher is held in a very high esteem. If the teacher tells a parent Johnny needs to stay after school every day this week to get his homework done and I will help them, the parents will say, okay, Johnny is going to be here at 2:30. I'll pick them up at 4 o'clock and you will help them every single day. Students need to be given alternate assessments because they have to read into what is being asked of them. Sometimes they really don't understand what is being asked of them. Group work may work better instead of individual work because the students can explain to each other what the answer to a question may be. If you don't do this, you may cause the student to fail. There are some myths that many immigrants believe that they need to adapt to the American culture, assimilate or integrate into it. This is not necessarily true. There are many cultures that have difficulty integrating into mainstream American culture, and these ethnic groups tend to search for groups of their own ethnicity to live near and send their children to private schools that promote their language and culture. Some Americans believe that if you can't master English, that you're not that intelligent. This belief has become known as the cultural deficit theory. The cultural deficit theorists viewed cultures and environments outside of the mainstream Euro-American as inferior. These views catered to highly ethnocentric perspectives. Contexts for Understanding Educational Learning Theories by Donna Belima. Think about this. If you are trying to learn a second language, it doesn't matter how smart you are. Some people just cannot learn a second language. It doesn't matter how successful you are. An individual may have 10 doctorate degrees. They may have $10 billion in their bank account and own a $10 billion company and still can't master a second language. Intelligence has nothing to do with learning a foreign language. Some hawkers who sell food on the street, who have barely a third education, might be able to speak 9 languages. So the cultural deficit theory happens when someone has a low opinion of cultural minorities, and it's based upon prejudice and preconceived notions that minorities have low intelligence level. They need a reality check. Think about this. If someone goes to a country that is perceived to be poor, someone had to build the roads, someone had to build the dams, someone had to create the electric plants. Who were they? This is enhanced when you see someone new to the United States. The individual sees things done a new way, and when they come to the United States, it's done a different way. Now they're confused. They don't know what's going on, and then some Americans think, oh, they're not that intelligent because they don't understand what's happening. I've also seen Westerners go to a foreign nation and criticize how the people of that country act and insult their culture because it's not the same way as their way of doing things. Sometimes immigrants are so shy of not fitting in that they withdraw and they don't try to succeed. For example, Koreans sometimes are ashamed of their English level that they will not speak English. Other immigrants hear the insults, withdraw because they feel they are not accepted. Another problem is when a student arrives that were in a war situation and escaped. They may be shell-shocked and have PTSD. People with PTSD have intense, disturbing thoughts and feelings related to their experience that last long after the traumatic event has ended. They may relive the event through flashbacks or nightmares, they may feel sadness, fear, or anger, and they may feel detached or estranged from other people. Some of these immigrants are sent to areas where there is a high poverty rate. The children become involved with crime, drugs, gang activity, and obtain low health care. When this happens, the immigrants see this and they start seeing Caucasian Americans or mainstream Americans succeeding and think to themselves, why can't we succeed and why are they putting us in this situation? They begin to start to think poorly of Americans. When many immigrants come to the United States, they have an optimistic attitude when they arrive. They start to tend to believe when they get thrown into poverty-stricken areas that the mainstream Americans don't have a heart and the Americans don't want them there. They also believe that mainstream Americans want them to abandon their culture. Some cultures, ethnic groups actually create their own schools because they do not believe the mainstream schools will have the ability to teach their children the way they learned. There are many Korean schools where children of Korean descent will only go to. When I was overseas, I wondered why this was. I began to think if I had my children overseas, I would send them to go to a Western private school and not a local school. It was nothing against the country, but how would my children speak? What would they learn, and if they came back to the USA, would they be able to attend college with what they learned? It's nothing different than what some immigrants think, it's just the way you see it or what side of the fence you are on. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you for being here. I hope to see you next time.